Pin day miracle recovery of Tesla's stock price by 50 points is our story for today. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. Wanted to get you a quick view of Fort Wayne, Indiana's Lakeside Park and give you an opportunity to enjoy some of the amazing views that are viable here. So we want to again thank our Patreon supporters. We want to also thank those of you who choose to subscribe for our channel. And we're having a little challenge with wind, so we're going to work to address that as well. So today's focus is the fact that on a weekly basis, usually Saturdays or Sundays, we'll do a review of what happened that week, the past week, in anticipation possibly of what will happen the next week. So I wanted to really want to drive in and jump into what happened on Friday, the 30th of April, 2021, because it was a pretty shocking day to see the stock price go from potentially being down 50 points on the day to up 10 points to close out the day. And I think it's a huge situation that's worth careful review. So, as you know, this week we actually got earnings, and clearly what we feel like is that there are two groups of folks. Earnings came out for Tesla on Monday, and then the stock price promptly fell, and it pretty much stayed down all week until we had this kind of miracle Friday. I'm kind of shocked. I just did a show that we aired on Friday that indicated it looked kind of bad because we knew that the hedge funds did not like what happened with Tesla's stock and its earnings and some of the techniques used to deliver those earnings, including selling some Bitcoin to bolster earnings in lieu of the profits just naturally coming from the business. So we were expecting what was happening on Friday to continue, which is the stock price would fall towards the 650 range, possibly lower. And that was driven by the fact that by the third day after earnings, we're supposed to see what the large institutions think about the earnings via advice from their analysts. And in this case, what we were seeing is that not only did the hedge funds say we don't like the earnings and the stock price was down, call it 50, 40 or 50 points there, but now the large institutions who are buyers, owners of Tesla were saying, hey, we think that the numbers were suspect and therefore we actually want to drop the price of the stock further, reflecting the fact that we're net sellers or, if you will, non-buyers of the stock. So that is sort of how the large institutions were articulating their vision. And frankly, from our side, based on prior to what happened on Friday morning, we were of the opinion that this was actually going to continue into a pretty ugly route for Tesla. And then all of a sudden, we had a turnabout and this whole sort of negative energy, negative environment changed dramatically. So before reviewing exactly why the change occurred, there are two things that I'd like to ask you to do, and this goes back to the fact that some of you know us well and you don't need this, but you might want to skip, it's about 4 minutes now, skip the next 5 minutes of video because I want to do a review of how a pin works and what the pin looked like for this week. And if you've done it so many times, I don't want to drag you through that. We'll drag you through the analysis afterwards. So I developed this concept called a pin. And what that means is that right now, if you take your computer out and you type in Yahoo Finance Tesla, you will see a screen in front of you. And what that screen is it'll tell you the closing price of Tesla. It has all this other information about Tesla. You can look down and see new news stories on the companies. There's a whole bunch of information you get from that. In the middle of the page to the right, you'll see a little label there that says options. So I want you to click on that. When you click on it, you'll see a blue sort of haze over the top of a whole bunch of numbers. What I then want to ask you to do is scroll down until you get to a spot that says 700 calls on Tesla. And so you're going to see what's called open interest, the number of options that are out there at that price point. And this is the call options that you'll first see when you open that screen. The next thing I'd like to ask you to do is scroll down further until you get into what's called the put area. So keep scrolling, you'll see 700 puts. Now, the puts have expired for yesterday, which would be expiring for the 30th, but now we're looking at puts that would be expiring a week from now. I believe that's May 6th. So what you want to do now is look across the line and see, well, how many puts are there that are scheduled to expire on May 6th? So that's the next question that we have to ask. So what now happens is, by having the number of puts and the number of calls, in this case at $700, you now understand what's called the put-call ratio. And what our argument is and what a pin is that, for example, this past week, what just happened was an interesting put-call ratio. Usually, there's a whole bunch of call options, double, triple, quadruple, 10 times the number of calls versus puts. This was a very unusual week. And the reason it was unusual is that I took a glance at it. There were like 6,000 calls at $700 a share, and this was Wednesday, Thursday timeframe. But there were 7,500 puts. So there was about 25% more puts than calls. Well, why is this significant? Well, what the market makers were saying is that we want to make sure as many as people as possible lose money on their options. And we can arrange for you to lose money if you have puts. We can arrange for you to lose money if you have calls. So we have an incentive from an optimization standpoint to make sure that whoever will lose the most money, we've got to figure out how to make sure they lose as much money as possible. So one of the things that happened when I looked at the put-call ratio heading into Friday is usually there are a lot more calls than puts for Tesla. This Friday was unusual. There were more puts than calls. What this then meant was the market maker had an interest in making sure that the stock price of Tesla finished above $700 a share. So once I saw the closeout of Thursday and the stock had fallen below 700, I said to myself, there is no way in the world that Tesla would finish above 700 and screw or cause people to lose money that own puts that said that the stock was going to be below 700. I said, there's no way they can do this. No way they can pull it off because the stock's already below 700 and it's falling. Well, you could look at what happened. Tesla's stock price suddenly went from 668 to over 700 in 1 hour. And so I looked at this and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It really, though, illustrates the point of monitoring the put-call ratio, because if you're specifically monitoring this, and particularly Wednesday, Thursday into Friday, you can actually anticipate what the market makers are trying to do, and they will use very creative techniques to optimize what their agenda is when it comes to Tesla's stock and its options. So feel free to send notes, etc. What I just explained to you can be complex, and I'm happy to answer more questions so you understand what's happening. But in essence, what happened was on Thursday, I looked at the put-call, or Wednesday, I looked at the put-call ratio into Thursday morning and said, hey, there are more puts than calls. So bottom line is the market makers wanted the price to be above 700, and then the stock got below 700, and I was sitting there going, well, wait a second here. Are these guys losing their edge? are they, instead of making sure that the stock stays above 700, it's actually falling, and that's completely ridiculous. So you actually saw what happened. The news that came out in this circumstance was that there were methods being used via Tesla's orders from another company to determine what their forecasts were for production for the year and whether or not they were going to meet those production goals. And the numbers that emerged from that suggest that Tesla is going to have $55 billion in sales and sell as much over 1 million vehicles this year. So that combination of information with documented numbers to support it from the supplier is why the stock price jumped nicely. Are those numbers generated currently, right away, etc.? Nope, they're not. The thing though is that it's one thing to speculate on whether or not they're forecasting those numbers. It's another thing to see signed contracts and orders that reflect their expectations of the number of vehicles that they're going to sell, hence why it had such a big impact. So we're now in an interesting position, which is, now wait a second, one of the beauties about what they just did is the fact that for market makers who are wise to this news coming out and the impact it would have, they could easily have spent $1 million to buy call options at 700, and now they've picked up 20, 30 times their money in a matter of 45 minutes. So this is why it's useful for you to take the time to understand the put-call ratio, chart it on a daily basis, look for changes there. Because one of the ways you can actually tell insider trading is if you all of a sudden see a spike in the number of people that are buying calls, and then all of a sudden some news comes out, like what happened on Friday, that causes the stock price to spike upwards, that's called insider trading, because you already knew what was going to happen. You just made a killing doing it, and that's kind of how that works. The thing though is that if you were able to react to that news quickly, you made some good money off of it. But the point is, folks that put out that information had the advantage of leveraging that information to make money off of it. And so if you're really astute to what's happening with a stock, with a company, with certainly its shares, but also its options at critical moments, there's a potential for 500, 100 times your money in an hour is always on the table, hence the value of the headache of maintaining an understanding of the put-call ratio. So what we're going to start doing is, as we put shows out for key numbers, every show we're going to start telling you guys what the put-call ratio is and a brief on why you want to be aware of that. And we'll likely do it, front end of the show, but possibly end. But monitoring this is a big deal because the numeric impact is awesome in terms of the amount of money that can be made, and rapidly, because of how this process works. So what next do we expect to occur? Well, actually what's going to happen is a 3-day rule is going to happen based on the new information we have. Will the analysts bake in that new information to redo their models to reflect expectation for the stock price of Tesla? And then we get a chance to see the institutions buying on that basis. What the hedge funds are saying by pushing the price up so quickly is that we know what the institutions are going to be doing. They're going to be buying more confidently because now we have a way to forecast what Tesla's sales and revenue and profit is going to be for the year, which Elon will not provide. And so for the upcoming week, what we're anticipating then is a 3-day rule, i.e. 3 days post, 3 business days post this news coming out, i.e. Tuesday, Wednesday, we see a pop in the stock as large institutions have a documented basis for why they're increasing their purchases of these shares. So so that's what my forecast is. I think that we're going to have our usual end of the week, huge numbers of calls at 800, so it won't cross that number. Large numbers of calls at 750, so it may not, but likely it could cross that just with the 3-day rule on Wednesday. But we expect sub 750, above 700 to be the neighborhood that it trades in this week. But do not be surprised if the 3-day rule allows large institutions to go ahead and make some really nice purchases of Tesla stock and drive the price up beyond 750, heading towards 800, because now they've had a chance to evaluate the new information that drove the stock price up, and they can act on that. So I think that's going to be a really good, sort of outcome of all of the things that we're seeing right now. At any rate, look forward to constructive comments on this. We actually, look forward to covering things nobody else is, because we want you to make money and be better informed in the process. The reminder, we have a few SpaceX shares. We also wanted to encourage you to like and subscribe. This section of the show is when we usually do our health tips. From a health standpoint, don't forget your 25 leg lifts. It will, I'm going to sort of give you more of this park view as we talk. So the 25 leg lifts per day will strengthen your quad muscles so your knees aren't as in bad shape. Also wanted to encourage you to consider a 2-5 or one of the other fasting diets as a way to improve overall physical and mental health. Also wanted to encourage you to consider what's called forest bathing, getting out into nature like this to help have this sort of impact your overall mental health by being out in nature and getting some exercise, etc. We also wanted to mention prior to making love, don't forget a light salad or something of that ilk is a good idea, because this facilitates blood flow to other extremities, not just your stomach. And also wanted to have you consider elderberry with zinc, along with vitamin D and vitamin C, to enhance your immune system, whether you've gotten your shots or not. My final note today is I just had my second COVID shot, and I ran into a problem on the way to the facility, which is that when I got there at 12:45, they were closed. So I decided to do a walk. And what I did was I walked around the building, and while doing so, I was doing arm raises, meaning that if you don't have weights in your hand, weights would be better, like a 2-pound weight. But by raising your arms in this manner, up and down, or in front of you, up and down, or behind you, up and down, you not only are getting exercise for your legs, you're also getting exercise for your arms. And so there's another move where you can do a chicken wing up and down for both arms, etc. So I wanted to bring these up to you as a way to enhance when you're walking, getting upper body exercise as well. But I had a very surprising thing happen, which was that after I got my shot, I found that shot number 2, which I was told is often more problematic than shot number 1, the shot had very little pain impact, if any, and the recovery time was better. So it looks like you get better blood flow through those muscles that are being exercised. And I was pleasantly surprised by the impact, so I wanted to encourage you to consider this as you get either first or second shot. Try walking for 10 or 15 minutes, exercising arms by extending your arms beside you, in front of you, behind you, etc., which will get blood flow heavily going in your arms, etc., and that I think might help you get through the process of getting your shot done. At any rate, we very much look forward to your comments. Please take time to like and subscribe. We also have our Patreon supporters space that I think you'll find the information useful. If you're above 125, you get all of our charts and graphs for the week. So if you do join, at least try 1 month at the highest level, because I think that the extra information, extra days you get will enhance your ability to understand and make money when it comes to Tesla stock and options. At any rate, this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss, German. Au revoir, French, Lehithro, Hebrew, Hota, Hafez, Farsi, Zdravstvuyte, Russian, Ni hao ma, Chinese, Konbanwa, Japanese, Hey do, Swedish, G'day, our friends in Australia. And in Jamaica, we say, no respect, walk good man. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to your comments. Have a great day and best of luck as you trade into the week.